Hi! I finally decided to do the second part of my story. I don't think we'll finish it because we're only on page 3, so it'll probably be like 4 or 5 parts. Again, tell me down below like if you want me to continue the story. Like if you think it sucks and you don't want to hear the rest of the story, like tell me. I want to know. So here we go. So we left off with, I listened to the sounds of the storm picking up, ripping through the house. Then, at long last, I heard the sound of the bell. My heart leapt as I myself leapt across the room. I ripped open the door to see both of them, soaking wet, standing there. "Where have you been?" I yelled at her in anger over the sounds of the storm. "She comes back after 5 years and brings her back late, soaking wet in the middle of a bloody storm." She smiled up at me and laughed. "We were just having fun dancing in the rain. Come on, I know you. You're not a downer." I glared down at her. "You know nothing about me, actually. And no, I am not. I'm just not a child anymore, Emily. I have a responsibility to my daughter. If you're going to be her mother, then you better start acting like an adult. Do you realize how much danger you put her in? She could have gotten hurt. She's going to be sick as a dog. And a storm's coming. You could have gotten in an accident." She rolled her eyes at me. "Don't go all parental on me. We were just having fun. I am a parent." I felt a tug at my pants. I looked down to see Hope staring up at me with scared eyes. I never yelled. Definitely not in her presence. "We'll talk about this another day. Now I have to take care of my daughter. Goodbye, Emily." I closed the door with a snap and looked down at my confused daughter. "Come on, let's get you dried off and into bed." She smiled and nodded her head at me. After she got changed into her pajamas and gave her a glass of warm milk, I tucked her into bed. As I was about to leave, she called me back. "Daddy, I'm scared." I walked back to her bed and sat at her bedside and stroked her hair. "What are you scared about?" Just as I asked, thunder rumbled through the house. She looked up at me with widened eyes. She grabbed my hand and buried her head into the pillow. I stroked her hair soothingly. "There's nothing to worry about. It's just thunder. It can't hurt you, remember?" She looked at me with searching eyes, wondering if it could be true. I kissed her head before slowly getting up and starting towards the door. I turned to look back at her. "You're fine. I'll be in my room if you need me, okay?" She nodded before closing her eyes and settling into her pillow. "I love you, Daddy." I smiled to myself. "I love you too, sweetie." I closed the door and made my way to my own room. I changed and climbed into bed. I rubbed my face as if to rub away all the stress and anxiety that day held. I was just glad to have my baby girl home safe, and I could now sleep peacefully. I closed my eyes and started to drift off. But I was soon startled by the thunder. I rolled my eyes, leaning over to my alarm clock to set it for a couple hours from then. I wanted to check on Hope to make sure she was still alright and not scared. I rolled over and covered my head with my pillow. I slammed my hand down on the alarm. Immediately I was aware of the seriousness of the storm that was raging outside. I quickly looked out of the window of my room. I was completely shocked to see that I could make nothing out. All I could see was gray. The wind was blowing dirt and leaves everywhere. I quickly made my way to Hope's room. I walked up to see her door completely open. I raced in, but she wasn't there. I raced around the house looking for her. I was completely panicked because of the state of the storm, and also because I still wasn't quite awake. I skidded into the kitchen to find her sitting on the counter, looking outside with a glass of water. "Oh, what are you doing? I was so scared. You weren't in your room." She turned around and smiled at me. She looked from the window and back. "Daddy, is that like thunder? Will it not hurt me?" I walked up beside her. My eyes widened at the sight I saw. A huge tunnel of air had formed and was hurtling right at our house. The storm had escalated drastically. We were in grave danger. I looked down into my daughter's innocent, curious eyes. No fear filled her eyes as she stared back at me, completely trusting that everything was going to be okay. I quickly looked back at the cyclone. It was hurtling at the house at an amazingly startling speed. But yet I couldn't move. I felt like I was rooted to the spot with fear and dread. Would I be able to protect the very light of my life? Would I be able to protect her? I felt unbelievably helpless, and then I felt a tug on my sleeve. "Daddy?" I looked down at my daughter, and suddenly I felt myself begin to thaw. I quickly jumped into action. I grabbed Hope, a few blankets, raced down to the cellar. I put her down under the table and climbed in after her. We sat there for a few moments. She grabbed my hand and looked at me with scared eyes. I pulled her into my lap and rocked her, but that's when we heard it. It was deafening. It was like the whole world was coming to pieces right over our very heads. I closed my eyes and shielded her with my body as the sounds got louder and more threatening. I could hear the house being ripped to pieces above us. I was completely terrified that the cyclone would rip right into the cellar. I knew there was nothing I would be able to do for my daughter. I stroked her hair and tried to tell her it was going to be okay, but I didn't even believe it myself. I held onto her tighter when I heard the door of the cellar being ripped off. The room swirled with furious wind. I did my best to shield her from the effects of it. Then, as if it could get any worse, parts of the roof started to be ripped from the cellar walls. I could faintly hear her screaming as loud as she could. I closed my eyes and prayed that everything was going to be okay, and that I wasn't going to lose her. I felt the blanket that was wrapped around us being ripped off of us. My hair viciously whipped around. I felt myself starting to lose my grip on her. I clenched her tighter yet with my right arm. With the other, I gripped the metal water pipe with everything I had. Then, as it started, it stopped. My hair slowly stopped whipping around. There was no longer the feeling I was going to be ripped from the very spot I was in. I looked down to where Hope was supposed to be. I was gripped with unbelievable grief. My whole life had been completely ripped away from me in a matter of seconds. The very reason for my life I had failed to protect. She was gone. I searched with vain hope. I cried in utter grief and fell to the ground and wished that I had died in the storm, not her. I looked up at the sky through the broken roof. I could barely see through the veil of my tears. My chest hurt with grief. I screamed in utter dismay and clenched my chest, weeping more bitterly than I ever thought I could. I never knew one person could feel so much pain and suffering. This was it. My life was over. There was nothing to live for. The very thing that was my life was gone. There was nothing left. No, I sat up. She wasn't dead. She was alive. I would find her. I would. And if I died trying, I would. I would make her safe again. I pulled myself up. Still weeping, I climbed the stairs with determination. I looked around at what was left by the storm. Everything was destroyed. But I would find her. I had to find her. I would find Hope. So that's it. I hope this isn't too long so I don't have to make it into two videos. Tell me what you think. And yeah, I might read another one. Maybe one that's a little bit more interesting to people. I don't know. I don't know if this one is as compelling as like a more common story or something. I'll talk to you later. Bye.